my name is Shinko. Welcome to my channel. We have been reading The Warriors Into the Wild by Erin Hunter. We are on chapter 17, and we just finished with a big battle. Shadow Clan invaded ThunderClan's camp, was trying to steal some kits. An elder died. Some cats did die. Lionheart was two cats from ThunderClan that I know of died in this battle. An elder, Rosetail, and Lionheart, the deputy. Deputies only have one lives. It's only the leaders in the series that have multiple lives. Now, if you've noticed with the reading, we're over halfway done with the first book already. Now, this first series is 6 books. The main villain has already been introduced. A major villain. However, there's still a lot that needs to happen before we officially get there. So, let's get going. Blue Star waited until the other cats had left before padding quietly up. Graypaw didn't even seem to notice his leader's presence. Firepaw looked away as Blue Star spoke her last words to her old friend. "Oh, what am I going to do without you, Lionheart?" she whispered. Then she limped back to her den and crouched down outside, staring grief-stricken into the distance. She didn't even try to lick clean her bloody, matted fur. It was the first time Firepaw had seen her look utterly defeated, and he felt a chill run through him. He sat with Graypaw and Lionheart until the moon rose high. Ravenpaw joined them, and together they kept company with their grieving friend. Tigerclaw strolled over and briefly shared tongues with Lionheart. Firepaw waited to hear what words he would share with his warrior friend, but Tigerclaw remained silent as he licked the matted fur. To Firepaw's confusion, the dark tabby's eyes seemed to be fixed on Ravenpaw rather than the fallen deputy. Spotted Leaf padded lightly around the camp, tending to wounds and battered nerves. Firepaw watched her approach Blue Star twice, but each time the leader sent her away to see the others. Only when Spotted Leaf had attended to the wounds of every other cat did Blue Star allow her to treat her bites and scratches. When she finished, Spotted Leaf turned and walked back to her den. Blue Star stood and slowly hauled herself up onto the high rock. The clan cats seemed to have been waiting for her. As soon as she had settled herself in her usual spot, they began to gather in the clearing below, unusually silent and somber. Firepaw and Ravenpaw got stiffly to their paws and joined them, leaving Graypaw behind with Lionheart's body. The gray apprentice was still lying with his nose resting against Lionheart's cooling golden pelt. Firepaw guessed that Blue Star would excuse Graypaw from the clan meeting this time. "It is nearly moon high," meowed Blue Star as Firepaw slipped into place next to Ravenpaw, "and it is once more my duty, much, much too soon, to name ThunderClan's new deputy." Her voice was tired and cracked with sadness. Firepaw looked from warrior to warrior. They were all looking expectantly at Tigerclaw. Even Whitestorm had turned to watch the dark tabby. From the bold expression on his face and the way his whiskers twitched in anticipation, Tigerclaw seemed to agree with them. Blue Star took a deep breath and continued. "I say these words before the body of Lionheart, so that his spirit may hear and approve my choice." She hesitated. "I have not forgotten how one cat avenged the death of Redtail and brought his body back to us. ThunderClan needs this fearless loyalty even more now. Bluestar paused again and then meowed the name out loud and clear. Tigerclaw will be the new deputy of ThunderClan. There was a yowl of approval. Whitestorm sat calmly, his eyes closed, his tail wrapped neatly around him. He was nodding slowly and approvingly. Tigerclaw lifted his chin proudly, his eyes half closed as he listened to the clan. Then he stalked through the crowd, accepting tributes with the smallest of nods, and leaped up onto High Rock beside Bluestar. ThunderClan, he yelled, I am honored to accept the position of clan deputy. I never expected to gain such high rank, but by the spirit of Lionheart, I vow to serve you the best I can. He gravely dipped his head, fixing the crowd with his wide yellow eyes, and jumped down from High Rock. Firepaw heard Ravenpaw murmur, No, under his breath beside him. He turned to look curiously at his friend. Ravenpaw's head was hanging low. She should have never chosen him, he muttered. Are you talking about Tigerclaw? Firepaw whispered. He's wanted to be deputy ever since he took care of Redtail. Ravenpaw mewed. He stopped abruptly. Took care of Redtail? Firepaw echoed. His mind suddenly raced with questions. What did Ravenpaw know? At the gathering, had his account of the battle with RiverClan been true? Was Tigerclaw responsible for Redtail's death? Chapter 18. Are you telling, Firepaw, how I protected Redtail? Firepaw felt a cold shiver ruffle the fur on the back of his neck. Ravenpaw whipped around, his eyes wide with fear. Tigerclaw loomed over them, his lips drawn back in a menacing snarl. Firepaw jumped up and faced the new deputy. He was just saying he'd wished you had been here to take care of Lionheart as well. That's all. He meowed, thinking quickly. Tigerclaw looked from one to the other, then stalked away in silence. Ravenpaw's green eyes clouded with terror, and he started to tremble uncontrollably. Ravenpaw? Firepaw meowed in alarm, but Ravenpaw didn't even look at him. With his head held low, he slunk back to Greypaw and crouched next to him, pressing his skinny black body next to Greypaw's thick fur as if he was suddenly cold. Firepaw looked helplessly at his two friends as they huddled beside Lionheart's body. Not knowing what else to do, he padded over and settled himself beside them, ready to sit out the night. As the moon passed overhead, other cats came to join their vigil. Bluestar arrived last, and once the camp was calm and quiet, she said nothing, but sat a little way off, gazing at her dead deputy with an expression of such unbearable grief that Firepaw had to look away. At dawn, a group of elders came to take Lionheart's body away to the burial place. Greypaw followed to help dig the hole where the great warrior would rest. Firepaw yawned and stretched. He felt chilled to the bone. Leafall was nearly here now, and the woods were clouded with mist, but above the leaves, Firepaw saw a rosy morning sky. He watched Greypaw disappear into the dew-soaked undergrowth with the elders. Ravenpaw jumped to his paws and hurried back to the apprentice's den. Firepaw followed him slowly. By the time he arrived, the black cat was curled up with his nose tucked under his tail, as if asleep. Firepaw was too exhausted to speak. He circled around on his mossy bed, then settled down for a long sleep. Wake up! Firepaw heard Dustpaw's voice calling through the den entrance. He opened his eyes. Ravenpaw was already awake, sitting bolt upright with his ears pricked. Greypaw was stirring beside him. Firepaw was surprised to see the familiar gray shape. He hadn't heard him come back after burying Lionheart. Bluestar's called another meeting! Dustpaw hissed at them and ducked out of the ferns. The three apprentices crawled out of the warm den. The sun was already past its height, and the air felt cooler than before. Firepaw shivered, and his belly growled. He couldn't remember the last time he had eaten, and he wondered briefly if he would have a chance to hunt today. Firepaw, Graypaw, and Ravenpaw hurried to join the crowd gathered below the high rock. Tiger Claw was speaking from his position beside Blue Star. During the battle, our leader lost another life. Now that she only has 4 per 9 lives left, I am going to appoint a bodyguard to stay at her side constantly. No cat will be allowed to approach her unless the guards are present. His amber eyes flicked to Ravenpaw, and then back to the rest of the crowd. Darkstripe and Longtail, he continued, turning his gaze on the warriors. You will act as Blue Star's guards. Darkstripe and Longtail nodded importantly and sat taller. Blue Star now spoke, her voice sounding gentle and calming after her deputy's commanding yell. Thank you, Tiger Claw, for your loyalty, but the clan must understand that I am still here for them. No cat should hesitate to approach me, and I am happy to speak to anyone with or without my bodyguards. Her eyes started briefly in Tiger Claw's direction. As the warrior code says, the safety of the clan is more important than the security of any single member. She paused, and her sky blue gaze rested briefly on Firepaw. And now, I wish to invite Yellowfang to join ThunderClan. Meows of surprise rose from some of the warriors. Blue Star looked at Frostfur, who nodded her agreement. The other queens looked on silently. Blue Star continued. Her actions last night proved that she is brave and loyal. If she wishes it, we would welcome her as a full member of this clan. From her place at the edge of the crowd, Yellowfang looked up at the clan leader and murmured, I am honored, Blue Star. I accept your offer. Good, meowed Blue Star, her voice firm as if the matter was now closed. Firepaw purred with delight and nudged Graypaw. He was surprised to realize just how much Blue Star's public show of trust in Yellowfang meant to him. Blue Star began to speak again. Last night, we successfully defended ourselves against ShadowClan, but they are still a great threat. The repair work we began this morning will continue. Our boundaries will be patrolled constantly. We must not assume that the war is over. Tiger Claw stood up, his tail held high, and glared down at the assembled cats. ShadowClan attacked while we were away from camp, he growled. They chose their moment well. How did they know that the camp was so poorly defended? Do they have eyes inside our camp? Firepaw froze in horror as Tiger Claw fixed his cold stare on Ravenpaw. Some of the cats followed their new deputy's gaze and stared in puzzlement at the black apprentice. Ravenpaw looked at the ground and shifted his paws nervously. Tiger Claw went on. We still have a while before sunset. We must concentrate on rebuilding our camp. Meanwhile, if you suspect anything or anyone, tell me. Be assured anything you say will be in confidence. He nodded to dismiss the clan, then returned and began murmuring to Blue Star. The cats separated and began to move around the camp, assessing damage and then forming work groups. Ravenpaw, Firepaw called, still shocked by Tiger Claw's dark hint that his own apprentice had betrayed the clan, but Ravenpaw had already bounded away. Firepaw could see him offering to help Halftail and Whitestorm before rushing off to collect twigs so they could patch the holes in the boundary wall. Ravenpaw clearly did not want to talk. Let's go and help him, suggested Graypaw. His voice was flat, exhausted. His eyes were dull. You go. I'll be there in a moment, Firepaw answered. First, I want to check on Yellowfang to see if she's okay after her fight with Blackfoot. He looked for Yellowfang in her nest by the fallen tree. She was stretched out in the shadows, her eyes thoughtful. Firepaw, she purred when she saw him. I'm glad you've come. I wanted to check that you were all right, Firepaw mewed. Old habits stay longer than old scents, eh? Meowed Yellowfang with a flash of her old spirit. I suppose so, confessed Firepaw. How are you feeling? This old leg injury is playing up again, but I'll be fine, Yellowfang told him. How did you manage to fight Blackfoot off? Firepaw asked, unable to keep the admiration out of his voice. Blackfoot's strong, but he's not a clever fighter. Fighting you was more of a challenge. Firepaw looked for the flicker of humor in the old cat's eyes, but there was none. She continued, I've known him since he was a kid. He hasn't changed. Bully, no brains. Firepaw sat down beside her. I'm not surprised Blue Star asked you to join the clan. You certainly showed your loyalty last night. Yellowfang twitched her tail. Perhaps a truly loyal cat would have fought on the side of the clan that raised her. But then I would be fighting for my 2 legs, Firepaw pointed out. Yellowfang shot him an admiring glance. Well said, youngster. But then, you have always been a thinker. Sorrow pierced Firepaw's heart as he remembered these were Lionheart's words, too. Do you miss Shadow Clan? He asked Yellowfang. Yellowfang blinked slowly. I miss the old Shadow Clan, she meowed at last. The way it used to be. Until Broken Star became leader? Firepaw was curious. Yes, Yellowfang admitted softly. He changed the clan. She gave a wheezy laugh. He always knew how to give a good speech. He could make you believe a mouse was a rabbit if he set his mind to it. Perhaps that is why I was so blind to his faults. The old she-cat stared into the distance, lost in memories. Bet you can't guess who the Shadow Clan's medicine cat is, Firepaw mewed, suddenly remembering what he had learned at the gallery. Felt like moons ago now. His words seemed to shake Yellowfang back into the present. Not running nose, she mewed. Yep. Yellowfang shook her head. But he can't even cure his own cold. That's what Grandpa said. They purred together for a moment. Amused, Firepaw got to his paws. I'll leave you to rest. Call me if you need anything else today. Yellowfang lifted her head. Before you go, Firepaw, I hear you were in a rat fight. Did they draw blood? It's okay. Spiderleaf has treated my wounds with Marigold. Sometimes Marigold's not enough for rat fights. Go find a patch of wild garlic. Roll in it. I think there's some not far from camp. Though your den mates might not thank me for my advice. Well, I do. Thanks, Yellowfang. Go carefully, young one. Yellowfang held his gaze for a moment, then let her chin rest on her front paws and closed her eyes. All right. Need to leave it there. So, Yellowfang is a new member of ThunderClan. Ooh. Okay, so I do have to ask. Do you think it's coincidence that Shadow Clan attacked when Blue Star was away? Or do you think there's a spy? It's possible it could be a spy, but it's also possible it could be coincidence. A major speech and change was made, and generally, when something happens or change happens, leaders will seek the advice of StarClan. So it's not too far to think maybe after that speech, Blue Star would go and just do it. Maybe they planned it that way. Maybe it's just coincidence. Do you think there's a spy? Who would it be, if there is? I hope you're having a wonderful day. We'll continue more tomorrow.